Hi everyone! Today we're going to be looking at two books written by Alice Liddell that are designed to help enhance any tabletop RPG experience. We've got 100 Witches and 100 Dangerous Plants. If you've been in the tabletop RPG scene for a while, you may have noticed that NPCs start to seem a bit stereotyped, and honestly, the land around you, it might get mentioned when you're, walking through it briefly, but it's never been all that interesting. Alice Liddell has managed to create these two books that are going to help create a more immersive and more interesting world for our different Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, or other RPG games that we're playing. So let's dive in. Let's play pretend. We're going to say that I was just invited into a new D&D game and I'm creating my character's backstory. I haven't decided on a class yet, but what I have decided is that I want her to be able to either heal people, create poisons, or what I really like is for her to be able to do both. Well, I absolutely can just put it on my sheet and just tell the DM that she just knew somebody or that she just learned it from somewhere. It would be more beneficial to both the DM and myself if I had an NPC that we can refer back to. That's where 100 Witches can come into play. There's actually a witch in there called Giles. She is part of the Oleander Coven, and the description we're given of her is as follows. The work of poisons is a delicate trade, oft employed by assassins and others of shadowy repute. But the cure is often distilled from the poison itself. Such is the work of Giles and her sisters. The Oleander Coven brews their vials of life and death for those that have the gold or treasure to ply. She is just as sick and sweet, amusing herself with invitations to her bed, some genuine and others not. It is not wise to share a cup with this beguiling Oleander, lest you lose your sight, your mind, or even your life. So from this book, we already have an NPC that we can give to the DM that has plenty of information for the DM to be able to use and keep the character reoccurring in some fashion, be it the character itself, her sisters, or even the coven. It helps ground your character into the game setting. And this would mean that you can have this NPC be a teacher to your character, or their mother, or if something happened to your family, maybe your adoptive mother, or if you really, really want to, this coven could have adopted you all together, and each of these sisters is helping raise you as their own, and in turn, teaching you their trade, which gives your character plenty of reason to know how to both heal and poison. But Missa, I hear you say, I'm the DM. What good are these NPCs really going to do for me? Well, my DM friend, this book has several different types of witches. They go from good to neutral to evil to lawful to chaotic. The whole gambit is there, and they can all be spattered throughout your campaign. You obviously don't have to use all of them, but if you want to give a little bit of flavor to your big bad, let me tell you about Peshav. I kind of like her as a motivation. Noble women and mothers with gold to spare will risk much more than lighter purses on their midnight trek to the great astronomer Peshav. They live in a wild cranberry bog that is treacherous to both friend and foe. Many have been swallowed up by the icy peat moss waters, but those who reach Peshav's doorstep are rewarded with the stars of any person they choose. To know one's fate from birth to grave is a terrible weight. Some go mad after laying eyes upon their charted stars, whether from power or despair. The result is often the same. So a simple big bad motivation is that they did manage to get over to Peshav, and they managed to get the stars and information of somebody. Do we know who they are? No, but the big bad does. It could have been his sister, or themselves, or some enemy, or a god, who knows? But what you know is that the big bad has a motivation outside of, I want to take over the world! fighting evil all the time can get a little tiring, even for the players. So if you really want to be kind, there's a witch in here for that too. Her name is Ginger Brienne. Ginger Brienne is described as seeking to give goodness to those in need. Children have been abandoned at her doorstep, and her cottage, which is somehow able to fit everyone, is now their home. She makes an absolutely delicious enchanted chestnut bread that, after only a few bites, will fill you for the day. There are, of course, many other well-thought-out witches in this supplement for the DM and the players to use as they need. The descriptions for every single witch gives you enough information to give you a really good idea about who they are and where they're coming from, but at the same time manage to give you a lack of information for you to be able to still have fun and make them who you need them to be. If you're using these witches as random NPC encounters, there is actually information in the beginning of the book to let you know what kind of damage that they're going to do, and if they're going to be hostile or friendly, if it's not already described with the character itself. And if they even have a familiar, you get the information on the type of damage that the familiars do as well. That's 100 Witches. I honestly am super glad that this book exists. It helps both DM and players to not have to struggle so much in trying to figure out NPCs either for the campaign or for your background. It's less characters that you actually have to build and more characters that you can just draw inspiration from. If you are interested in this supplement, there is an affiliate link down below. All right, DMs, we need to talk for a second. What is going on between point A and point B when our players are going out and going to the next town, going to a quest? What I've noticed, they normally just kind of make a camp for the night, maybe expect, some kind of monstrous creature or humanoid figure to come out while they're sleeping, and they might be able to get a random encounter. But you know what they don't look for? Plants. I know, it sounds silly. Plants. Oh no, the grass is going to eat me. Yes, it will. It absolutely might. If you want to get some ideas for some very interesting flora and fauna for your game, I'm going to suggest 100 Dangerous Plants. 100 Dangerous Plants has information on trees, bushes, vines, flowers, and man-eating plants that are trying to take over the world. They're not trying to take over the world. They're just trying to eat you. And honestly, this book solved a problem that I have not been able to put my finger on. Honestly, the travel time and the scenes that we have, while the cities are grand and beautiful, and there's a ton of description, when we're going out from town to town, each road is the same. It's a dirt road or a gravel road with some trees, maybe a river, and it really doesn't play a part into our game. It's just there. But honestly, how interesting would it be if you had to worry about things like Bluebell Bane or Black Morning Glory or even Lich Kelp? These are things that we've not had to deal with before that I think would be super beneficial to all of our games going forward. These plants in this supplement are nicely separated by the terrain type you're going to be able to find them in. There are 10 different terrain types. You have forest, tundra, jungle, seaside, desert, urban, so your cities, your town, your mountain, your grassy plains, farmlands, and swamps. So there are different plants that you're going to find in, say, a huge city versus what you're going to find in, say, a farmland. And that's really, really good because, again, we don't think about much of that other than, oh, there's some oak trees or, oh, there's some willow trees, maybe to give a little bit of flavor, but it's not enough for us to really pay attention to the earth around us. Which, if you go outside right now, there's poison ivy, poison oak. There's Venus flytraps that are eating, creatures around them. They're not eating humans, but they're still fascinating. Not all of the plants in this guide are going to be dangerous to the players. Some of them are actually dangerous to the world around them. For example, there is the falsewood bush. When there's a dense forest of them, it is described to often blind the animals in the forest due to the constant contact with the bushes. And I find that extremely fascinating because we tend to forget about the natural aspects of the game actually having an impact on anything. And honestly, this is something that the players should be paying more attention to. Let's look at one of the plants from this supplement a little bit deeper so that you can have a better understanding of the different things that these plants can do. We're going to be looking at the vortex juniper. Lofty mountain trails are often plagued by freezing gusts of wind that rip bitter cold through even the warmest of gear. These evergreen shrubs create odd pockets of gale force winds that can knock even the most sure-footed mount off their feet. When their branches catch even the smallest breeze, they begin to move faster and faster until they create an impassable vortex. They are most plentiful at mountain peaks where they are least likely to be eradicated and are the most dangerous as there's unlimited wind for them to utilize. The vortex junipers, they sound really neat and dangerous, but my first thoughts when reading that was I want to find the vortex juniper as a player, and I would love to take a branch or a handful of branches, depending on what the DM decides is going to be better, and I would love to use this item to effectively cast Gust of Wind until the branches either break or dries out. The book doesn't say I have to do that or even can do that, but it doesn't say I can't. And I think it would be fascinating and extremely dangerous, even to myself, if I had this on my person. Could you imagine? You're in the middle of a fight and you just take out a handful of branches and you're just all like, wah! And it just gust of winds them? That's amazing. You're swiping them away with branches. Now, to be fair, it would also be extremely dangerous for you to be able to go up there to get them. But I think the reward is worth the effort. There's also a plant in this book that is going to be able to make people magically sterile if they let the spores linger on their skin for too long, which honestly, this could cause a magically inert town. That's amazing. You have an entire idea for a town right there because of one plant. There's also roses that, while they're extremely beautiful, and if you manage to pick one, are able to woo the heart of whoever your crush may be, if you get stabbed by one of its thorns, it's going to cause you to have lesions and it's going to thin your blood unless you get that fixed and taken care of. But my favorite of the plants is probably the least dangerous of them all. It's called the Sunsetter Sunflower. These are found in the farmland section of the book, and they are described as being a darker red version of the sunflower, which of course gives them that sunset look. But they're not called the Sunsetter flower because of their name, but rather because at night, if you have breathed in the pollen of these beautiful, gorgeous flowers, you're going to forget what happens in the middle of the night after the sun goes down. And you might be getting a knock from your neighbor, or you as the player might be getting a knock from an NPC asking why on earth you decided to bathe in the butter churners last night. This flower, while mostly harmless, does cause you to create a little bit of vandalism of the most hilarious sort. However, if you are able to get rid of all of the Sunsetter sunflowers in the area, and it's been about a fortnight, you should not have to worry about the effects of the spores any longer. Every single plant in this book is amazing, and each one is unique in its wonderful way. The fact that you're able to find different plants that can do different things, that can affect the different towns and the town's cultures, is absolutely fascinating. And I thank Alice Liddell so much for writing this supplement to help fix a problem that I have been sorely feeling and did not have the words to describe. That's my take on these two books this week. Next week, I actually plan on doing another thing that focuses more on the spooky season, and that's going to be about blood magic. If you would be interested in either of the two supplements that I mentioned today, the links are going to be down below in the description box. And if you really liked what's going on or didn't like what's going on, please leave a thumbs up or a thumbs down. In the comment section below, I do have a question for you. If you could pick any witch or any plant to be able to put into your game, what would it be? Until next time, I want you guys to keep those dice rolling, and I'll see you in the next video.